venerable monks and nuns, and HOD sir, and all the faculty members of the Gautam Buddha University Buddhist Department, and our General Secretary Mr. Maling sir, and all his members, and all the people gathered here. First of all, I would like to say good afternoon almost, and I will not take too much time, so I will briefly speak about, you might be wondering, who these guys, the wearing red robes, it's kind of alien, for you guys. So you might have seen, His Holiness the 14th Dalai Lama, and there are almost more than 80,000, Buddhist Nalanda tradition monk like me, wearing red robes and cutting out all the hats and wandering here and there. You might be meeting in somewhere in your life, right? So you might have some question, who these people are, what they are really doing, right? So today I'm here to really briefly explaining or talking about the Nalanda tradition, right? So what we really do, and what is the Nalanda tradition, and what is the significance of the Nalanda tradition, and briefly conclusion of my talk. So probably you all know the Nalanda University, one of the most oldest and biggest university in the world, which is physically located in the Bihar, right? Bihar state of India. And actually, when you look back to Indian history, right? So we came to know that there was a huge university which was actually founded by the Kumara Gupta during the Gupta period in Indian history, was founded during the 4th and 5th century. Kumara Gupta actually founded this Nalanda tradition. And what was the purpose or the reason, he founded this university, right? And he was the actually Buddhist king, and he thought that the Buddha's teaching must be studied and must be put in curriculum, so that people will understand, so that we can keep in academic world, right? So for that purpose, and he began to actually founded the Nalanda University, which is it is said that 10 kilometer length and 5 kilometer, 10 by 5 kilometer. So, and it is actually Chinese, the Xuanzang, Chinese traveler, he visited to India, and he actually wrote some travel blog, and in which he said that there was more than 80,000 students and more than 2,000 teachers, right? So those teachers, as my colleague Maling sir mentioned, the 17 great masters of the Nalanda tradition, they were the teacher of the Nalanda University. And what they really teach, right? What they really taught to the student. And today, they actually taught the 5 great texts, the 5 great treatises that we study, like from the Himalayan belt, from Ladakh to Arunachal Pradesh, and from Tibet, and even some from Nepal and Sikkim and all those areas. Like we actually study about the Mahayana philosophy, not majorly focused on the Mahayana study, not only the Mahayana study, but also the Tantrayana, we call it Vajrayana, and the foundational Buddhist, right? The Theravada study. So Theravada actually, we call it the foundational Buddhist. For us, it's like our elder brothers and sisters, right? So in Nalanda University, the great teachers, they taught their students about the 5 great treatises. What are the 5 great treatises? First is the Buddhist logic, Buddhist Pramana, epistemology. You might have heard the Parman, right? in Sanskrit we call parman. आपके पास परमान क्या है, right? So what is the parmana? What is the logic, right? So actually, directly or indirectly, as a Buddhist, our ultimate aim, whether it's a foundational Buddhist or Mahayana Buddhist or Vajrayana Buddhist, sorry, our ultimate aim is to really to see the reality, right? To get the nirvana, if I use another language, right? To really, realize the cessation of the truth, right? If I go to the Four Noble Truths, that is the ultimate aim of all Buddhists, no matter whether you are wearing red robes, yellow robes, brown robes, gray robes, right? So, our ultimate aim is to realize the truth, to get rid of from the suffering, right? So to see the truth, to see the reality, that's our ultimate aim. So how do we know? Whatever I'm saying is the truth. Through the valid cognition, through the Buddhist parmana. So the Buddhist parmana or epistemology, actually, if I say in a brief, Buddhist parmana actually deals with the valid cognition. The whatever you are seeing, whatever you are feeling, whatever you are experiencing, is it really valid parman or not, right? So it talks about the valid cognition or invalid cognition. So that is the first subject that we actually study or propagate or promote in our Buddhist world, one treatise. And the second one is Buddhist, the middle way philosophy, right? Buddhist Madhyamika study, middle way philosophy. So what is the Buddhist philosophy of the middle way, right? So middle way can be described in a multiple way, right? Middle way. So when Buddha was actually, before he got enlightenment, when he was practicing in a Naranjana river, so after he putting a lot of rigorous practice, not eating, putting a lot of pressure on his own physical body, he came to know, he realized that, oh, that's, what I'm feeling in a one extremes. So I should eat, food. At the same time, I should not really fall into the luxurious lifestyle. So that can be the one approach to the middle way, right? So that is the one explanation. So middle way can have so many meaning, right? For example, everything, in middle way philosophy, we talks about true truth. You might have heard about the true truth doctrine, right? The relative truth, right? Samvrti Satya, and the ultimate truth, the Paramarthik Satya. So whatever we are seeing, whatever we are experiencing, we think that, whatever we are seeing is real, right? And we suffer. Why we suffer? Because, everything doesn't go as we expect, right? The Buddhist approach, the Buddhist middle way philosophy is trying to tell, trying to actually open the egoistic approach, trying to help us to open ourselves like a, empty sky. The more you open yourself, the more you go to the deeper, the more you are close to the truth, right? So that is the not really neglecting the relative world or not really falling into the, ultimate world. So you are approaching to the, reality from two ways, relative way or ultimate way. So in a very briefly, so actually I will come up with this letter. So Buddhist middle way philosophy deals with the reality from two approach. In another example, I would say, if I would say, oh, Malingombo is the one of the best person in the world. If I only believe that he is the only best, if I will appreciate too much about him, I think that cannot be truth about him as well. If someone is condemning only 100, he is the most worst person in the world. That is also falling in the too extreme. So middle way approach, right? How do we approach to the situation, to the person, to the reality, from not falling into two extremes? So that is the Buddhist middle way philosophy. How do we approach to the reality, not falling into the two extremes? So that is the second subject that we actually emphasize or study in our Buddhist world, Buddhist middle way philosophy. And the third thing is Buddhist Prajna Paramita. You might have heard this word a lot, right? Especially in our Mahayanic Buddhist world, we talk a lot about the Prajna Paramita, right? The transcendental wisdom. What is the Prajna Paramita, right? Prajna, ja, in a sense, knowledge. Pra is a suffix, right? Pra meaning the best, super knowledge. What is the super knowledge? Paramita. So in literally it says, right? Par meaning going beyond from this dualistic world. So Prajna Paramita is about knowing the undualistic reality. So the realization of the undualistic reality. So non-dual approach. That is the third treatise or third philosophy that we actually study in our world, right? From the Nalanda tradition. Buddhist logic and Buddhist Madhyamika philosophy and Buddhist Prajna Paramita. And third one is Buddhist Abhisamaya. Yeah, Abhisamaya in a Theravadian tradition, it is emphasized a lot, and it has so many resources in Theravadian world about the Abhisamaya, right? Abhisamaya, what is the Abhisamaya? Abhisamaya is Abhisamaya deals with the mental factors, the emotions that we have in our daily life, how these emotions are compounded, how these emotions are made up, how these emotions really entangle us in our dualistic world. So when we study about the Abhisamaya, Abhidharma, yeah, actually I was using the different word. Yeah, I got mistaken actually. It's not Abhisamaya. Abhisamaya is Prajna Paramita. It's Abhidharma. Sorry. Yeah, it's Abhidharma. Abhidharma, you might have heard, right? So Abhidharma, that is the fourth treatise that we study in our Buddhist world. Abhidharma, what is Abhidharma, right? Abhidharma is knowing or really knowing the reality of the mental factors or the mind and consciousness, and it's with our consciousness we have a lot of emotions and perceptions, right? We are too much sort of attached to our perceptions, right? We think that my idea is the best, right? If someone goes against with your idea, then you got fed up, right? Then you got angry, then we suffer, right? And sometimes we are too much attached to our emotions. How about my feeling? You hurt my feeling, so you are the worst person in the world. So when we study about Abhidharma, so we are actually studying about how these emotions and perceptions entangles, inculcate in our samsara. And knowing intellectually, help us, but emotionally or mentally or practically, if we know about the mental factors, perceptions, emotions, how these works, how these entangle us, then we got liberated. So that is the fourth treatise that we study in our world. And the last treatise, the fifth treatise text that we study is the Vinaya, Buddhist Vinaya, right? Buddhist Vinaya I guess, from the Theravadic approach or Mahayana, we have same rules and regulations for Shramanera and Bhikkhu, Bhikkhuni, right? Rules and regulations of the monastic sanghas. And not only the monastic sanghas, but also the lay people have some rules and regulations in, Pratimoksha Sutra and, lot of, Vinaya Sutras and, texts are there. So we study about these, Buddhist Vinaya. So these are the 5 great texts or treatises or philosophies that we, the people from the Himalayan belt, right, and all across from Nepal to Tibet, from Ladakh to Arunachal Pradesh. So we actually spent years and years rigorous practice to really approach or to see the reality of the nature, true nature of ourselves. So that's the who we actually are. And the second one is why this is important, why this tradition, the Nalanda tradition, is important to preserve and propagate. So I think it's extremely important, especially in today, this 21st century's world. It is extremely important to propagate, to globalize this idea, because ultimately each and every one of us, we all want a happiness, right? We all do not want a suffering. So these, the Nalanda, the methods, the approach of the Nalanda tradition is to get rid of the suffering, right? So suffering, in a sense, not in a physical suffering. Physical suffering might be, get rid of from the, taking pills. So mental suffering, emotional suffering, right? We have a lot of psychological sufferings. Sometimes we, got tangled with our own, mistakes. So in order to really get rid of, to see the reality, to really challenge the, the relative world, these Nalanda approaches, these Nalanda philosophies extremely help us, no matter whether you are, coming from the business world, no matter whether you are coming from the academic world, no matter whether you are coming from the, the Buddhist world or Vedic world, Christian world, it doesn't really matter. So eventually our aim is to really even evaluate the suffering that we are having in our daily life, right? So that's why I think it's extremely important to preserve and propagate. So, and then, I think, I will conclude my talk so I can, answer some questions if you guys have. So, in briefly what I'm saying here today, the purpose of my talk is to really introduce, right? So the Himalayan Buddhist, we call it, the people who are wearing red robes, top from the His Holiness Dalai Lama to until, till me, So what we are doing, what we are studying, what is our approach, right? What is our Buddhist world, how it look like. So when you go to Ladakh, when you go to Himachal, when you go to Dharamshala, right, you might be seeing, different colors, different deities, different fantastic words, colorful words. So the ultimate aim of our existence is to how we are trying to approach the reality, So all the colorful, the flags, deities are the, kind of skillful means, right? So that's the why, I'm here to introduce, So from this talk, I hope you have some idea about, the Red Rovers Buddhist Himalayan belt. So, and I really want to, thank you for Mr. HOD sir, and for providing me such a great opportunity, and General Secretary and all the members of the Indian Himalayan Council of the Buddhist Tradition. So providing such an opportunity, it's a great pleasure, and thank you for attending this talk. And if you have any question, please, I can answer you. Thank you.
Talking about the literature, we are talking about obviously all are the branches of the philosophy. Psychology also they are discussing through the Abhidhamma Pitaka. Okay, but this is my query is there. Just say, but why logic and epistemology so ignoring? Actually, it is totally ignoring, but it has so much importance in our Buddha has made Buddha too, Shantideva, Asanga, Vasubandhu, everyone had great work on this topic. So now where we cannot see anywhere is the work on this logic and epistemology. We are doing so many work on this other topic, language, literature. My query on that.
What is reality?
What is this?
What is reality finally? That is
Okay.
the main.
So, yeah, first of all, thank you for the question.
But today I am satisfied with your lecture.
Okay, thank you.
Why Buddhist
Just
logic?
hello, I said, why this logic and epistemology? We are not discussing much more.
Okay.
On logic and epistemology.
Yeah. So, thank you. Really, it's a very interesting question actually. And what is the reality and why we are not really studying about the Buddhist logical epistemology, right? So, see, there could be a many reason why we are not really emphasizing on the Buddhist, logical epistemology. So, like in our Himalayan belt, we really, study rigorously. We put a lot of effort in the Dharmakirti and Dignaga's text, like Parmana Vartika, Parmana Smuchaya, right? So these are the main source that we have about the Buddhist logical epistemology. So through which, it helps us to see the reality. And probably, maybe, not having available resources in, our modern, languages probably could be the reason. And actually in our, Boti language, we have, kept a lot of Tibetan, texts, in Buddhist epistemological logical system, and we put a lot of effort and rigorous practice. And the second question that you have about what is the reality? It's a very interesting actually. So if I ask this question to all of you, I will have maybe 40 and 50 different answers, and I cannot say all the answers are wrong, right? If I ask someone what is the Coca-Cola, one person will say, oh, it's a black liquid drink, which is not wrong, right? But that's the one aspect of the Coca-Cola. So if I say, when you ask what's the reality, reality is the not really seeing everything that you see, that you feel, that you experience is not real, right? Every one of us, we think that my idea is the best, my feeling is the real. If I'm saying this cup is beautiful, I think I feel, even not really think, I really feel that I'm the right person. This is really beautiful. If someone go against my idea, someone tell me, come on, this is not really beautiful, what you are really saying, and I got offended, right? Why? Because I didn't have the vipassana, right? Seeing, from the bird view. Seeing the reality, meaning it can have many approaches, right? So reality is, sometimes we give an answer, oh, reality is emptiness. Again, emptiness is one aspect of the reality, right? So partitya samutpadan, right? Interdependence, that is also a reality, one aspect of the reality. So if you think that only emptiness is the reality and interdependent is not the reality, then you get in trouble. So reality has multi-faced and multi-approaches. So that's why I'm saying the Theravadin approach is also a way to reach the reality, and Mahayana approach, Vajrayana approach, ultimately we are trying to reach, to the reality and to see the reality, not just really intellectually seeing, but emotionally to live with it. Once we live with the reality, then definitely we will have less suffering. Definitely, we can, we can really, deal with a lot of problems that we have today. We are making by ourselves, right? I hope you might have some answers.
But sir, when we discuss about the reality, then how we can identify which is the wrong cognitions and which is the right cognition? This is also the point, because I know that so many work already previous time has been occurred by our great philosophers, great logicians,
Yeah.
Guru, Shantideva, everyone has done so many work. But nowadays it is not discussing about, I am talking about that. And then without discussing how we can know what is the wrong cognition and what is the right cognition.
That's why I think we need to discuss. Not just write a thesis. We think that we wrote a thesis and then we believe that, whatever I have written is the right, should be right, must be right. If we discuss in our classes, not only in a classes but outside of the academic world as well, right? In family world, we need to create a kind of spiritual world where we can express our approach to the reality, through which we will come to know a lot of enlightenment ideas. I think so.
Thank you, sir.
I need for just some clarification regarding that. Sir, actually, earlier discussion I have with you. The four pramanas, Nyaya logic, Pratyaksha, Anumana, Sabda, Upamana, right? So in Buddhist